Ooh. It got stains on it, Daddy.
Is it?
Yes.
What color is that?
Blue.
Oh, sure. See? Where's the wrong button?
Oh, what have we got here?
Alright, so we're gonna go to the gates.
Yay!
Where's the gate?
There. Yes. We're in the gate. I'm not in the gate.
And one more planet I haven't visited. Harvest Field. What number is that?
5.
Good job. 0. And it put near its order 50. Number 50. Yes.
More.
I think that's it now. All right. Everyone in position.
Hey, those guys, they are not in position. This is not. What is it?
Yeah, where is he gonna run it?
Anyone can walk by themselves.
Let's see.
And in boxes.
I think everyone. Right, ready?
Us.
Go. Prepare for battle. What we got here? 1 liter box. Humongous little bug. Oh, look at that.
I think we have to bring it back to our sim.
No, I don't want to fight it.
Me either.
Don't say fight our ship.
What's I bite it? I'm for.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. Go up. That is one big ship.
Yep.
And that is one ship.
You think about the strategy for this. What's damage? Oh, look at this. Organ.
I give you.
Yeah.
This is bad for
Is it?
this world.
Bad is it? Ready? We're gonna launch the Nookie. Here you go. Take one. Boom. Oh no. Oh, look at it shooting out. Me. Repair. Quick, everybody. Repair quick. Oh dear.
Oh, Daddy, go up.
Yeah.
Something coming for us. Go.
Oh yeah. Good eye spotting. Thank you, buddy. Oh, we got him. Woo.
Yay.
What is he? Bucky. Force. Take up that. Force. CLIW. Force.
I got 2 of them.
We've been knocked out there. Play something tough.
We're gonna win this, aren't we?
I want to somehow knock out there. What is this?
What is it?
Oh, okay. Everybody, come on.
Why are you in full motion, everyone? Why are you in full motion?
Come and repair.
Quickly!
Quickly. Oh, they're on fire too. Take that.
But good shoot, guys. You got all holes in
Oh.
You can get us now, can't you?
Come get us now.
You're on fire. Uh-oh, here comes the get 'em.
That's it. Shooting in there.
Oh, fired that look.
Yeah.
Fired,
yeah.
Fired. Fired right to get them all fired on your ship. And there you got more fire.
Ahoy, you mighty.
Oh no, oh no.
Oh no. Are you repairing that long? Hurry up, please. Oh, they're on fire. Ah.
They put it in the fire. How you can do that?
Yeah, the spy brawler. We are victorious.
So our one didn't get to info.
No, we didn't say goodbye to our
Bye bye. That one. Bye bye to the other one. Oh wow, that was a good shot, Dad.
good hits, good hits.
Oh, fire coming.
We didn't take much damage at all. Hey. Yeah, take that.
One more to go. Oh, Daddy.
Yeah.
Those bounce back to us.
Whoa! Victorious. Say number with me.
Victor.
No, say that number.
5.
5. That number. 4.
Whoa.
It's okay. It's okay. Number what?
It,
1. Number.
4.
Good. What's that number? Next number. 8.
8.
How about this one?
8. 5.
Good. Go. Well done. Alright.
Oh, what?
Wow. Big boy reactor.
Let's get it!
Pop this over.
Ooh. Oh, that's our ship. It's great.
Oh.
Okay.
Where is the
What?
on here?
What is going on? Should we go to another thing? Or should we die in the guy?
before. Scrap it. Oh, 7-2. Nice. Don't have much. No.
Yeah,
Maybe
we don't need to
scrap
sell
this one.
anything.
Where is the Where is the control table? What is stuck down there? Are you serious? Oh no. Alright,
What's our engine
Is it engine?
anyway?
what's yeah,
Where is our engine too?
stuck there. Still.
Yeah. Should we get that engine or what? What engine?
How about we call?
How?
Can't do that.
How about we call for?
9%. Alright, scrap that. Yeah.
So that'll give you time to do what you do while I'm away.
Everything's stuck under there. What?
Yeah, everything that kind.
Gonna get it. Too late.
Can make it 9. Like 2.
It's good we got some.
Okay, how do I get this down here? See the panel under there? Out of the way, please. I can move this panel. This big panel, get out of the way. No. All right. Can't do this. Oh no. I think we're stuck here, mate. Look, I can't do anything. Can't scrap it like that.
It's all dark under there.
Yeah, and then swap it over. And that's easy. Swap this. Yeah, but I can't stuck there.
No, but it's so annoying though.
No. What do?
Yeah, should we die here? Me either.
Come on.
Come on. Daddy,
Yeah.
maybe you should use that.
Yeah, I can't. Try out.
Come on. I'm not tired.
Yeah. Go sleep.
Not tired.
So when Daddy
What I'm gonna do. Any idea, mate? Now.
Thinking of now.
Oh, here. We can't.
Oh, I lost it.
We can't even call for
Daddy,
SOS.
I God did this and then I lost my idea. What?
Right.
Oh, I lost my idea. Come on, I lost my.
Out there.
No.
Out there.
Oh, what's going on? It's stuck on it.
No.
Come on, stop
Oh,
it.
hang on. Oh, come on.
Why can't you call for help? For us.
Because we still stuck in battle.
Because the
What are you
us,
doing?
the us can't come, guy.
Why is that door broke? Door? Are you serious? Oh no!
Try and get the one off that. Try and get the one off that.
What's a squat? Oh, hang on, hang on.
Oh, he got it.
I can destroy it.
He can go fix the door. He can go fix the door.
Yeah, look at that! High five! Ah, that is so smart. Say it.
That is so.
Smart! Smart! No. No, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's a trainer.
Can you help me? Excuse me. Active word, John. I don't think this is a leaf or talk loud, I reckon.
It's not.
See?
fixed.
See?
No.
Stuck down here. Delete panels down here. Alright, who making what? You are doing this. Often all night long.
Yes.
Guy. Oh, he fully skilled. Okay, that's interesting. Let's go. There you go. SOS. Everyone in position.
Everyone's on the go.
Go. Bad boy. Bad boy. Yeah.
Doesn't he look funny?
Yeah, he looked like he had no teeth. He lost
Yeah.
on his teeth. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There's some food. Oh, still got more food. Okay. Right.
Go on, give me that.
You want?
Thing. Oh, 2 doors broken. What's the Martin doing position?
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah. We.
Yeah, what's he doing? Where's he in position? Come on, what? Alright, in position.
Pew pew pew. Not got any color. Large metal object. Oh.
We got synthetic and metals and apple too.
And by that.
Oh. 5.
Good job. Down here. That look like upside down 6. Look. Upside down 6 in number 9.
Number 9.
And look like 2 zeros. See, look like 2 small 0 in there. Number 8. What's going on now? Jump. Oh, I can jump. Nice. Know that. Come here. Oh, come here.
You gotta always jump, Daddy.
Look for the broken. Can you see any broken section? To repair? Yeah. You're broken. How come we lost 3 HP? There are no broken section. Can't be serious.
No, we didn't.
Any hole? The holes.
Move, Daddy.
Hmm?
Move, huh?
Where's the holes? Can't see.
Oh,
Going. Monolith. Anomaly.
oh, we got that and matter.
Yeah, that's a lot of. Oh, come on. Why you keep doing this? Oh. Uh-oh. Troublemaker. Troublemaker.
And I don't want that.
Oh, don't want that either.
Go away from us. You please go away. It's annoying. Can you please go away?
We're gonna take them heads on. Ready?
What is that?
Oh, yes. This is fun. Goodness me, look at these big guns. We could be in trouble, mate.
No.
Need to knock down the big reactor. We got 1, 2. Right. Be out. And hopefully we hit the jackpot. What do you reckon? Boom, 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 boom. That.
What? Stones.
Yeah.
Focus, focus.
Hey, excuse me. What is that? Hey?
No, I said focus.
Focus. Okay. Yes. I am focused. Good. Like it.
But if you're coughing, you won't focus on your wow.
Yeah.
There's a guy coming. Now,
Gotcha.
look.
Where?
Someone.
Ah, take him out. Yes. Haha. The second vitamin spike.
Another one.
Is another one? Where? Yay! Gone too. Another one by the dust. Wow. We are awesome. High five. Big high five. Good. Look at that.
A big one.
Ah!
Is that a big one?
Big.
Do you want big?
Hang on. I forgot.
We got a broken thing.
Can I use? Oh. What? Oh, yep. Broken thing fixed. Mr. Fix, please.
I said it.
Well done.
Who's gonna fly that one though? Oh. Thank you guys. Oh, go down. That way. Someone stuck. I see someone that.
I need to get the.
There's.
Oh, we're stuck here. Okay.
SOS.
18, 24. Identical. That.
Good, we can grab it.
Let's grab.
Daddy. Grab it now.
Let's go. Oh yes, the trader coming. Uncertified trader. Okay. No worries. God. Look. Ooh, the fuel pack. Look. Explosive packet. Oh, this guy is definitely trader. Him. Dale. You buy. Oh, he buy Myrtle too. Look at that. Dale. Left. Organic. Let's put these down. Oh yeah. Alright. Need to sell some organic.
Can I be
Why?
too?
Ah! Ooh!
Again. Again, Daddy.
Hey, I need to upright this way. Hybrid. Should try to hybrid. Let's do it. Sell some fuel. Oh no, actually don't sell it. Alright. Noise. Did it upgrade? I did. So can the gun go here? Yes! Can! We have 5 guns. Marvelous, I say. Okay, why this guy off? Doesn't matter. We need to... We're done, high 5.
Should we go while we was?
And why do we run out energy?
We haven't done anything.
Let's go.
How would we get dollar backs anyway? What are you talking about? How would we go get dollar back?
How we get something not right?
How do we get dollar back?
Where's our energy gone? And why this guy here?
The one's in position again. That guy's in position too. That guy's in position too. These two.
We need 1 more weapons. Might not need this one. Hello, cats. Your name Little Ninja. Wow, cái cháu. Alright, let's.
Yeah, we stole.
I think we're good to go. Okay. Oh, hello. Shipwreck. Pew, 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 pew. Oh no. Can't keep stuck in here.
Do we need the SOS again? Do we need the SOS?
Do we? I say no. We can just heal the cat, then we keep going.
Cat here.
Yeah, the cat got legs. Okay, because he is a legend cat. So good to go. Oh no! Come on! Slave. I don't want to be a slave. Be slave. I fight. I fight to the max. Will you stand with me? Will you stand with me, buddy?
Yes.
Yeah, high five. Yeah.
That's why I do have fun. Attack you.
Maybe. Okay then. Let's look.
2 wooden
Whoa, what is this? That's huge. What's going on?
What is here?
Aiming system. What?
Let's go down, Daddy. A bit more. A bit more, Daddy.
Now where? Nothing down there. Oh! I didn't see that. Thank you. Didn't see that. Thank you.
Oh, someone coming!
Is it someone? Oh. Oh no. There's someone
Coming.
coming.
Two of them.
Why is Katya making food there? Are you serious?
And him too.
Oh no. You need to get out here.
There's still another one. Oh, that's the other one.
Yeah, he's gonna eat some bullets.
Focus, Daddy, focus.
Focus. Alright.
It's here now.
Oh no! They got one of our boys. That's not fair. Oh no. Been shooting at too. Why is he got 3 now?
We got it now. Why did we get our paper?
Everyone back into position.
What is our paper? Oh, go down.
I think we got them. Hear me?
Are we good to go, Daddy?
Yeah, after you tell me anyway. Well done. Good job.
Wow, I'm learning my alphabet.
Yeah, you learn the alphabet. That's cool. No, sorry. You learning your numbers. Alphabet. Where they come from? Serious.
We're in a white hole, though.
And why do we have to? Oh. Grab that. Grab that. Grab that. Oh. Food. Glorious food.
Ooh, oh, yeah.
Wonderful food.
Wonderful food.
Food in the boot.
Food in the boot.
Food in the tooth.
Food in the tube. Daddy got a pop. Not one.
Like that.
Yes. It's already will pass. It gives you.
You me. Here too. Put that. Come
Did
back
I
to the-
do that thing? That no.
Why do we? Oh, we lost one man. No. That is that day. Salute for the lost comrade. Salute, soldier. Yeah, good job. Good man. was a good man. we don't need it one. Oh no.
If we watch another pig and another pig, another pig, another pig, another pig, another pig, and then we all go, and a cat, 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 and
I
a
don't
cat.
think I need this.
Daddy, can you sing the cat song? Okay? It goes like this: cat, 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 cat.
Cat in the hat.
Not cat in the hat.
Cat in the hat.
We got some voices too.
Yeah, hang on.
Oh.
I need one more section.
Ow.
Suppose then. Why?
We don't do bullshit.
Sorry. There you go. Got 2 good, no 3. So my grab this. I'll keep it for now. Go station. Got repair. Much. Oh. Oh. That mate. Go to bed. Food.
Here we go.
Oh, hang on. We got an issue here.
What is it?
Good.
Here we go, Santa.
Yeah, we need a new
A new place.
new place to grow food.
A new place to grow fruit. You're gonna forget it. Nice.
Nice.
I forgot it. Forgot it, Daddy.
Get it?
And I was
I forget it.
need a place for fruit.
Oh. You're correct.
You need a place
We
for
need big
fruit.
boy with big gun too.
Yeah, we do, but
Who that shall be? I think it'll be this guy. What you reckon?
I think it is.
Yeah. But this guy quite like useless. I'm gonna retire him. You've been very good. I am Ockham. Now you can retire.
Oh, that's a fruit place there.
Good place. What are you doing? No, stay here. Do it. Go home. Catch the plane. Go catch the spaceship. Go home. Don't you dare turn back. Do it. What are you doing? Go in here. Tell him. Tell him staying there. Why he going up? Why he keep coming back for? Oh, is it here? No. Oh, good.
Why would you do that?
Because we run out bedroom for new guy. I think I get this guy. What is his name? Rippy. You say it?
Rippy.
Can you spell his name?
Oh.
Yeah, I take this guy. Welcome aboard, Mr. Rippy. Your new job is security.
Can I see him again?
We'll see him again. There you go. Say hello to Rippy.
Hello, Rippy.
How are you?
How are you? How are you, Ruby? How are you? Okay.
Oh yes, we have one packet of organic that we should sell it. Sell it. Get the money that we got. We are
Wow.
loaded. Yeah, 2,565. We are loaded. Gold and silver. That
Wow.
we are rich.
We're rich.
We are super rich.
We're super rich.
But I still buy you extra toy. This last wheel, you left it in the shower and they on running, yeah? Remember that? Mommy had to chuck them in the bin. Why they on running, Jacob?
I got more though.
You got more. That means Daddy not buy you more Hot Wheels. Oh! Monkey Chunky coming. Right there, right there.
They're coming too.
They coming soon, everybody.
It's in time for our. Hi, everyone, get up, please. Everyone, get up, please.
What's the photo?
No, they're not getting up.
Hey,
No.
I think that is the waking up. Oh, come on. Oh, that helpful. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
Roaching ship. Money. Number is that?
2. 2.
Ah. More
Oh.
Bucky. More Bucky.
Ooh. That gifted me a flight, Daddy. Hi, Ruby's doing bad.
Yeah, what is this guy doing? Look. Get up.
Ruby, get up. Ruby, get up.
Actually, we need a new a turret.